Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar, Concept Testing to Support New Product Development. I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Debbie Senior, Vice President of Global Products and Automation. Debbie leads our strategy to automate research products, processes, methodologies, and reporting so our clients can benefit from our high-quality research solutions more quickly and cost-effectively. Last year was a big year for us. As you may know, it was our 20th year anniversary, and we launched Luna Start, the industry's first end-to-end consumer intelligence platform. This platform integrates our cutting-edge technology, our sizable global panel, and our best-in-class expertise in qual and quant research to deliver agile insights to our clients. Our platform has always been built around the need for agility, especially to deliver speed and value. But from client feedback, we knew we had to do more. We've done a lot of work to make our platform, surveys, and solutions easier to use, access, and share. We also created a range of automated solutions for concept, pack, comms, and brand. They're built on tried and tested methodologies and set a consistent quality baseline for anyone to use. So you can rely on them even if you have little or no research experience. We know that automation can result in too much rigidity, and so we ensured more flexibility so you can adapt them as you need. Now, I'd like to hand it over to today's presenter, Debbie Senior.
Hi, everybody. I'll turn my camera on so you can see there's a real person behind this. And welcome to the webinar. Today I'm going to take you through a demo, and I'm going to talk about some best practice, some elements of quality, and also the flexibility that we have built into our concept test solution. But I'm just going to show you a few slides to sort of talk about the key features, but also to just really set the context behind today's webinar and why this solution is so important and why we've developed it in the way that we have. So let's start with that. You know, concept testing is one of the items within the whole NPD life cycle. And we know that time to market is shrinking. It has been doing for quite a while. So many of our clients are doing sort of iterative test and learn. And that means you need that agility to be able to test, change the product and service, and go back and retest again. And that's an important dynamic of any sort of solution in the marketplace. We also know markets are highly fragmented. There's a huge amount of competition, and the need to innovate and sort of stay relevant is more important maybe than ever before. And the other element we know is change is constant. You've got to constantly sort of keep in touch with your consumers, dip into sort of what their needs are, their behaviors that are changing, and their sentiment, particularly in the light of the COVID-19 environment we've found ourselves in the last year. That's even more important maybe than it has been. And really within all of that context is why, you know, we've developed this agility so you can actually meet the needs that you now have. So a couple of key features. It's just easier for me to show a few slides, and then I'll spend time on the demo showing best practice and taking you through how it works. So one of the items that we've spent a lot of time and effort on is what we call quota balancing. You may also know it as cell matching. And what this is a way of, when you actually set your quotas, of making sure that those quotas are balanced or proportionately represented across each of the concepts that you're testing. So the example we have here is a very simple one, which is in my demo. I've got females, and I've set 3 behavioral segments around health consciousness. And I've set 150 completes for each of my concepts. And I want 30 that are not very health conscious, 80 that are somewhat, and 40 that are very or extremely. And at the bottom, what you can see in terms of the results from my survey is the 30 is on the right-hand side there of not very health conscious. The 80 is in the middle, and the 40 is in that second column. And so you can see that the proportions that I've set are actually coming through across each of those segments and each of the concepts that I've tested. The reason this is really important is if I did a survey and say for concept 1 and 2, most of my quota is actually all about extremely or very health conscious, but then actually the results for concept 3 and 4 are on the opposite. They're people who are not very health conscious. I then don't know whether I can rely on my results or not. and I don't know whether it's accurate or whether actually it's been biased because of the quotas that have actually come through in the survey. We think this is a real point of difference for us versus other platform competitors, and it's something that we're very proud of having achieved, and we think it's an important quality aspect within our solution. A couple of other key features. So, I'm going to show you the sort of core of the sort of the demo and the setup, and obviously have key questions. But there are others where you might want to get a little bit more nuance, a little bit more detail around the concept that you're testing. And one of those is text highlighters. So this is embedded. If you've got any messaging or text around the concept, you can put that text in, and the respondent can then highlight in pen color what they like and what they dislike. And you can find out, do you need to take anything out of that message because it's detracting from, the brand or the product. The heat map is more for image, so maybe more relevant for pack testing. It's certainly embedded in that solution, but you can also include it in concept. So this again is you set questions around what specific elements of the image do you like, dislike, find confusing, find different, and the output is a click map, basically of everything that everybody's picked for each question. And again, it's the nuanced detail to just tell you what's working, what's not working within the concept. And then the third one on here is something that Taluna and Harry's team can add for you in terms of JavaScript. It's a Van Westendorp price set of questions. And we ask here, put the price in that you find this product to be too cheap, expensive, and too expensive. And what we're getting from this is literally the minimum and maximum price range and the acceptable price range that they consider that concept to be at. So it's a really good, easy module to add in to get a little bit of basic price information. And that, as I said, that can be added in very easily. Other elements you may or may not be aware of if you've worked with us before is we've actually developed a pretty extensive norms database. So we have over 10,000 records at the moment in different markets and categories. And again, you can ask your team to provide that context for any survey that you're running in terms of concept. You can also benchmark within the survey as well. The other option that you might want to consider, it's great doing quant and it gives you that validation, but sometimes you need to sort of maybe talk to consumers in a more qualitative environment before or maybe after to dig around and get the richness of the feedback. Within the Taluna Start platform, you'll see the live discussion. So it's a qual online forum. It's got a live group chat element, and it's very easy for you to set up, or the team here can actually help you with that as needed. But it just helps you to sort of integrate and get a little bit more from the survey. And then our new feature, which we've only just really sort of launched, it's this a very specialist partnership we developed with a company called Canvas. They're basically a specialist in AI, automated coding, and emotion analysis. And so if you've got any unstructured data, you've got any qualitative data from the live discussions, or open ends from the quant that you're running, we can actually put them through that system, and it will give you very, very speedy analysis of what the key topics are and the key themes, how people are feeling about it, and you can export that and look at specific verbatims. So again, that's available through the team. If you want to have a look at that, please request it and we can share it. So those are just some key features. I'm now going to go and actually show you the demo. Bear with me whilst I just transition. Okay, so on screen, you should be seeing our Taluna Start platform. So anybody who hasn't had a chance to go on yet, this is our homepage, and I'm just going to show you it briefly so it's familiar. And what you can see here is the one project I'm going to talk about today is one of our recent, this is our test account. But you can see here, if it's a recent one, I can see it's closed, but I can access the report very easily if I want to. If it's not more recent, you go into all projects, and I'll show you that in a minute. If you're creating something from scratch from a concept test, you just go here, create, and it will take you through to what we call our wizard, where you can sort of set that up within minutes. And you can see our other solutions are also here, and our live discussions. And also, if you want any help, there is a really extensive Q&A as part of that homepage. If I didn't have access to this, it wasn't one of my more recent sort of projects, I could go to the old projects on my projects. And what you can see here is, again, this is my survey. And it's telling me that I've actually shared it with other stakeholders. So if you're part of an organisation group, that's one of the new enhancements. You can share surveys, set up a really good quality baseline that other people in your company can duplicate. If you do want to lock and not share it, you can also do that. And here you can unshare, duplicate, launch, delete. And you can also, as soon as it populates, start seeing the report and the info board that's coming through. And again, they're shared with anybody that you enable within your organisation. One of the best practices to be aware of is if you want to set up what we call our wizard and reuse it again for multiple surveys on multiple markets. When you get to the save button, just save it as a master, and that means you can then use that and duplicate it for any other purpose that you actually want from there on. Okay, so I'm now going to go and show you the sort of wizard. So this is what we call our define pages and our setup. And the purpose behind this is to enable you as easily as possible and with a quality input to get a survey sort of populated in a very, very quick time. A couple of things I'll point out on this first page. You can have a different internal survey name to external survey name. And from a quality point of view, the reason you do that is you might not want to give too much away to the respondent. So you don't want to influence or bias them before they actually go in and take the screener and the survey. So you could make it even more generic than I've done here, but that's possible to do. The audience, there's a range of different markets, a range of different languages. You choose the one you want. This is a UK survey because that's my main location. The next one's around category and subcategory. So these enable us to actually develop more relevant norms that we could then feed back and give context to your surveys. But what subcategory does is this feeds through a nuance into certain questions that get populated. So then the actual question text is more relevant to the respondent. And I'll show you an example of that. And that's a free-form text for you to write in what you need. And then these two at the bottom is, we test a whole variety of things. A lot might be CPG products, but also, media, entertainment, financial services. And so we need some nuances for whether we're testing product or service, which you can capture here. And then purchase intent question is always a very important core question for concept testing. And here you can pick a different nuance depending on the sector or the product that you're actually testing. So if you don't want to pick, would you like to purchase or would you purchase, you can pick, would you consume, would you take out, would you subscribe? And whatever you pick here will automatically feed through into the survey, into those specific questions. This next one is if you've got branded concepts, just put the information here. It just helps the next phase to get populated and you get a drop down for the brand. If it's unbranded, you can just ignore that particular page. Then we go on to a little bit more detail. So this is the nuance, really, how you define your concepts. So we've got the flexibility of up to 12 concepts per survey. At the top here, you can click how many you actually want to create, and then beneath it will populate that for you. This is an element of quality that we've built in here. You can define how many each respondent will see. Now, we set the default at 1 because that's our best practice, which is what we call monadic. And by setting it monadic and only allowing one of the concepts to be seen for each respondent means, again, they don't get influenced, they don't get any bias from seeing anything else that might impose on the rating they then give for that concept. So that's why we sort of set it that way, and that's why our best practice is as it is. We understand there are pragmatic reasons, including budget, that might not be acceptable in some of the surveys. So we do enable sequential monadic, and it will work, in the survey. Just be mindful if you do that, and you've got a respondent rating 2 or 3 concepts, just of what types of metrics and the length of the survey, that you don't sort of impose too much and spoil the engagement level. The next one is the text highlighter. So if you want to include that, you just switch that on, you copy and paste your text, paste it in there, and that will literally create the question you need for the text highlighter. The media we've got here is, I've just put an image in here, but you can have video, you can have pure text. There's a drag and drop mechanism. If you save your image and video, you go to your file, just drag and drop it across and it'll put it straight in there. Or you can upload if that's what you want. And again, you want to make sure that the highest quality stimulus goes in, because you want to get a proper rating from your respondent on something that's good quality, that they can see very clearly as well, particularly if there's a lot of detail involved. In terms of price, you can include price. You don't have to have price, but if you do, again, there's a tooltip here to explain you can have different currencies, different amounts. You can use a comma rather than full stop, and you can also have a unit. And again, that feeds through to a value for money question, which I'll show you in a minute. So you can see here, there's a lot of content, very, very quick to push in. I've got 4 here that I'm now going to save and go on to the next slide. And then we've got literally our last setup piece for concept is the actual metrics themselves. A few points I want to make here. This has come from, we've been doing custom concept testing for many, many years. We've got a lot of research expertise and methodology expertise in the business. And this has come from, that expertise. So we've set this up to, have, all of the core things that you would need in this type of survey. You don't have to have them all. If you want to uncheck something, you just uncheck it, and that won't then populate. And that's fine to do. You might want a slimmer survey for some of the things you're testing. The ones that we've actually got with stars are those that we would suggest in any survey you should include them, because they're sort of key elements, I suppose, in terms of really saying, is this a strong concept or not that's going to survive in the market? So, and these are things like, is it appealing to people? Is it standing out? Does it fit with the brand? And will people buy it? And then the rest is sort of good context and extra context for you to include as and when you need that. There's a claims one here. If you didn't want those, some of our clients don't like including claims. They do a separate survey. You can just untick those. But otherwise, you can add your claims of what that product claim is, and we ask, which of these appeal and which are believable. The other thing to bear in mind is we also enable this for quality. It's a watch again button. We're not trying to catch the respondent out during a concept test. We're trying to get a very accurate rating on what they think, is good and bad about the concept that they're seeing. And particularly if you've got something that's complex, or you have, a text-based proposition like we do have in financial services, it's actually good practice to enable the person to be able to look at it again before they rate that specific question. And you'll get a better answer by doing that. So, you can click that on and off, but our default is, to enable that to be the case. Actually, one thing I just will mention with this particular set of metrics is the order that these are in. Is the order we've chosen, again, for quality. So we tend to have our really key sort of open ends and our, core metrics right at the front. We want to get those as quickly as possible because they're top of mind. We want to get that, insight from the person quite quickly. But the more detail we want, then we ask those questions towards the end to get the nuance and the sort of extra information, I suppose. So we've set this as a specific logic that we believe works and is logical for the respondent. You'll see you can change that, but that's why we've set it that way. Okay, so what happens at the end of that is, as I said, you can either save it, and that will save the master wizard that you can then duplicate and reuse many times over, or you click done. And as soon as you click done, you then go through to, it will populate behind the scenes like magic in the background, and then it will take you to the target page. So a couple of things to point out here. We talked about having a sizable panel. Now this is where it gets integrated with our solution. And in any market, you've got a whole range of people who you can ask questions of. There's a couple of key things here. Here's a couple of things that you put in the wizard will automatically be populated here. We've got a range of demographics, which you can see here, and also profiles, which are based on category and sector questions that we ask of our panel regularly. And by using these, it means you have a more efficient survey. You don't have to re-ask those again in the survey, and it means your respondent focuses on the things that matter most, which are your core questions that you want to have. We made an enhancement to have custom targeting. So like you see here with my health conscious, that's a custom target that I've set up that's specific for me in this survey. Quite often in concept testing, we'll have categories. So we might have brand use and different quotas on brands, or we might have light users versus heavy users, and you want to make sure that you've got a representation of those different groups across each of the concepts. So this is where you would be able to do that. And as I said before, by interlocking those together, that means that the quota balancing, the cell matching will happen in the background, and you make sure that you get the sort of best quality that you can from the audience. Okay. So one other thing that I want to mention is about the sort of flexibility. So there's a couple of quality things here, but also the flexibility that you have. So we've seen a lot about the automation, the really quick setup that you can do, and then it will populate that for you, and it will save you many, many hours versus doing that sort of custom. But, you can adapt different things that are in the survey. One thing maybe I'll mention that you won't have seen in the wizard, which does happen automatically, what we call our technical quality question. So what's an important thing is the stimulus that you're testing, we want to make sure that actually the respondent can see and hear, that stimulus properly. And there's no point getting ratings if they can't. So we've built in, depending on whether you've got video or audio or static imagery, we've built these in to check that they can actually see and hear certain things, and anybody who can't automatically gets screened out at this point. They don't take any more part in the survey. So that's quite a critical element. Another quality question we have is what we call our red herring question. These are things we do as standard in research. And again, if the person towards the end of the survey doesn't complete this correctly, they're screened out and we'll find someone else to fulfill the quota. So those are important elements. What you'll see here is we've got each of our concepts actually is in a separate block. And this is the actual survey that gets populated from the wizard. So you can see, we're going to show you a product concept. That's the intro line I had, what the image looks like, and you're enabling Zoom and so on. And then each of the questions you can see in the logical order. As I said before, the flexibility here is if you have a different preference, you can, decide that actually you want to move the order. So if you don't want your open ends first, you can move those to later in the survey. And you could do that manually for each concept. You can edit, so you can go into this, you can look at the text. If it's not quite what you want it to be, you can change that and save it, and whatever you have then will be shown to the respondent. And you can also delete. So if you did pick everything and then decide it's too long at this point, you just want to maybe remove a couple of metrics, then obviously you can do that as well. And when I talked about sort of word replacement happening in certain metrics, you can see that happening here. So if you click through, you'll see all of the full text, but here I'm just getting a shortened version. But you can see that the concept name that you want to show to the respondent is showing up in several of these questions. In the purchase intent, I did actually only include purchase, but if I didn't put something like consume or subscribe, this is where the text replacement would happen. And that would happen automatically because that's what you chose in the wizard. Oops, I'm just going to keep showing you a couple of things. This one here is taking the subcategory name into account. So again, that nuance, not just saying, in the drink sections, but actually more specific than that. So we're getting the relevance that we need for the consumer to rate in the survey. And I'm just going to scroll down and show you another couple. And here is where the price goes. So this is the value for money question. It only gets shown if you do have a priced concept. It will grey out in the wizard if you don't. So you can't choose it by mistake. And here you can see actually it's brought through exactly the price that you put in the wizard, and that's done for you. So it's saving a lot of manual time and so on. The other thing to bear in mind here is there is a way as well, you can add any custom questions that you want to as part of this survey. So that we've already got a lot of content and the core questions are there. But if you want to ask some open ends, you can just drag and drop the open end and ask that. You can ask choice or rating. And here is where you find the heat map. So you drag the heat map into the concept, create your questions, and then that would be part of the survey. And these are generally placed towards the end. So you create a different page for each of your custom questions. But if you did want to actually have something at the start, what you would do is go to this organize button here, and you can reorganize the pages of which they're seen. So again, you've got quite a lot of flexibility if you want to spend the time and the nuance to do that. Maybe one thing I will mention that I forgot to mention earlier here, I won't click through for you to sort of see it in detail, but you can see here we're using 5-point scales. So these have been set up within all of our questions. We've consistently kept a 5-point scale. Obviously, sometimes it's an agreement scale, sometimes it's different wording, but generally the most positive is at the top, and it's our code 5. The most negative at the bottom of the code 1. And the reason we've done this is it's important to have that consistency for the norms and for the context, but also for the respondent. The worst thing you can have for respondent is to have, some codes where you've got the negative at the top, somewhere you're seeing positive at the top, and there's different sort of one's 5-point, one's 7-point. That just confuses the respondent. So the key here is the consistency. And there is flexibility. If you wanted to, you could actually make these 7-point or 10-point, and it would still work in the info board as long as you kept the highest, most positive as the top answer code. And if you want more information about that, your Toluna team can help you with that. But again, it's just another layer of flexibility. You can then go into the theme and you can change the colors, the fonts, and anything else that you want to do. And then lastly, I'm conscious of time, we're coming up to the end, is as soon as you populate your survey, you get the info board starts being populated in Toluna Analytics. And a couple of things I'm just going to point out on here is there's a huge array of information. You can see lots of side-by-side comparisons where each of the concepts are compared against the metrics. You can go into individual and see the full scale. And see exactly who rated number 1, who rated 5, and anything in between. So there's a lot of layers of information in here. But in this snapshot here, instantly, what's important is we want you to see, is one concept standing out against the rest, and where are they standing out? And what we do is we have this sort of stats testing built in here. And you can see on appeal here, concept 3 is doing much better than the rest of the concepts. So instantly you can see this is stronger versus some of the other concepts on quite a lot of the different metrics. And that gives you an instant guide as to, what's working well and what's not before you start digging in any deeper. And I just want to show you this as well. So this is an enhancement we made on our info board. Before you just saw the sort of the whole view based on the whole sample, but assuming you've got enough completes to look at the analysis in subpopulation, you can look at different demographics, and there's more than I'm showing here because mine's just a simple example. And you can bring the sort of custom filters through that I saw earlier, and you do that by building them in Toluna Analytics, and any subpopulations you have there will come through as filter options. You apply those, and then the picture will be the group of people that you've seen and their output. And then very easily you can sort of export that and get an editable PowerPoint that you can then use in other ways and means. And anybody who hasn't seen Toluna Analytics, just to show you, this is the extra sort of output. If you've got custom surveys, this is where you'll do your analysis. This enables you to just do a little bit more and interrogate the data if that's what you want to do. And again, it's fully shareable. You can set different permission levels, and you can export to Excel or PowerPoint, different sort of shots that you want. So it's a very quick run through. I think we're sort of just about sort of hitting time. I want to thank everybody for joining today. And if we have got some time, we could take a few questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Debbie. We did have a few questions come through. So the first one, is Tuna Start available to market researchers or only end clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's available to a whole array of clients actually to use. So yeah, it's widely available for anybody who's subscribing to our platform.
Great. The next one, we'll do one more here, and anyone that we didn't get to, we'll reach out to you via email. But the next one is regarding the quota for each concept. Can they be set up before the survey is launched?
Yes, the target is still set up. So the way that the process works is you set up the wizard, which gives you the questions that get populated. The target is the next thing you do. And then you check your survey, and then you go through and launch. So all of that is done. And you can preview as well. So one thing I didn't mention is there's a preview button on each of the questions. You can fully preview the whole of the survey to check that it's working the way it should. And all of that is done before you click that launch button, and then it goes live.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we're out of time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Many thanks, everyone. Bye.